Hello, everyone. My name is Maria Salas, and I'm joined by my group members, Sienna, Gaia, and Ashley. Today, we'll be talking about our replication project, which is reducing the problematic social media use via a package intervention by Leslie Stinson and Jesse. The purpose of the study is to empower group members to reclaim control over their screen time by implementing alternative activities that foster personal growth, well-being, and meaningful connections. By reducing screen time through app limits, each team member will actively engage in promoting healthier habits and allocating their time towards activities such as exercising, reading, or spending quality time with loved ones. The collective goal of our study is to inspire positive lifestyle changes that prioritize balance, productivity, and fulfillment in the digital age.
So first, for our literature review, we have our original study, which is reducing problematic social media use via a package intervention. This was written by Leslie Stinson and Jesse Dallery. There were 9 participants used from a university setting who wanted to reduce their social media usage. To be involved in this study, you had to have an inclusion criteria of scoring more than 31 on the modified internet addiction test. You will see this mentioned later in our presentation. To track daily usage, you would use the screen time application, usually on a smartphone. We used iPhones. The design was a concurrent multiple baseline design. For baseline, there was no screen time limit set, and enabled to move to intervention, there had to be no decreasing trend for at least 3 data points of baseline at the end. For the intervention, there was a decided upon limit for each individual, which is tracked through their screen time app. This is in conjunction with a contingency management plan that asks the participants to choose 3 other activities to participate in as alternatives to social media use. The results of this original study were that the intervention was effective at decreasing daily social media usage, but there was no notable increase in duration spent doing alternative activities. Our second study that we use for our literature review is a qualitative study on the reasons for social media addiction. The purpose of this study was to determine the causes of social media addiction. The participants were 25 university students who were perceived as social media addicts. This was determined by taking an addiction test called Social Media Usage Questionnaire. It was a qualitative research design using interviews, document analysis. This was forms via email and participant observation. Email forms were sent out with 5 questions focused on the experiences and habits connected to social media use. The study found that the main causes of social media addiction were lack of friends, social media being perceived as an activity, fulfilling a mission, following current events, and finally being connected to real life. The next study we reviewed is social media addiction, its impact, mediation, and intervention. The purpose of this study was to examine the relationship between mental health and social media addiction for college students. There was 2 studies used in this review. The first study was a survey, which was dispersed to 250 students to examine the relations between mental health, academic performance, self-esteem, and social media use. The results found that there was a negative association between mental health and social media use, which was mediated by a lower self-esteem. Study 2 implemented an intervention with participants deemed to have a social media addiction, in which the experimental group participated in a 1-week program using cognitive reconstruction, while the control group did not receive any programming. Both groups during this time tracked their social media use. The second stage of Study 2 was the experimental group recording their daily thoughts, feelings, and behaviors regarding social media. The findings of this second study were that participants in the experimental group saw a noticeable reduction in social media addiction and an improvement in their mental health and sleep quality, while the control group had no significant changes. Next, we have social media use and its connection to mental health, a systematic review. The purpose of this study was to summarize the effects of social media usage on mental health. 8 papers were cross-sectional studies, 3 were longitudinal studies, 2 were qualitative studies, and 3 were systematic reviews. The findings of this were in the 16 studies, anxiety and depression were the most commonly measured outcome. The prominent risk factors for anxiety and depression comprised of time spent, activity, and addiction to social media. One study found a 70% increase in self-reported depressive symptoms among the group using social media. The conclusion to this is that social media envy can affect the level of anxiety and depression in individuals. The findings of this study suggest a potential causal factor from social media can be considered when cooperating with patients who have been diagnosed with anxiety or depression. And lastly, we have reasons of social media addiction among youth, an exploratory study. The purpose of this study was to understand the addiction to social media among youth. 133 individuals participated in the study by completing questionnaires, which were then analyzed statistically using means and t-tests to determine the results. The findings of this study were that if social media is used moderately, it can have good effects such as increased social interaction, facilitating the sharing of ideas and information, or globalizing. However, if overused, it can negatively impact mental fitness, emotional well-being, and can lead to a loss of interest and a loss of confidence.
All right, so next is research methods. There were 4 participants. There are 4 female graduate students, full-time working, taking an online course at Ball State University. Sienna is 24, Ashley is 28, Gaia is 45, and Maria is 22. For materials needed, as stated earlier, we use smartphones such as iPhone, screen time application to track how much time was used on social media recording form, a demographic questionnaire that asks name, age, gender, and ethnicity, behavioral allocation form, contingency management system to track chosen alternative activities, modified internet addiction test, pre and post intervention, which we did 2 days before and 2 days after intervention. Intervention acceptability survey completed at the end of intervention.
Okay, so on the left of the screen, you can see the screen time application. This was used to track our usage daily, and it is on our phones, and you can see TikTok, which is what I was using and trying to limit, is listed as 24 minutes on that day. And on the right, we use an Excel sheet, which is where we tracked our daily duration on social media. We also use this behavior allocation survey. As Ashley mentioned, we use this for the last 2 days of baseline and then for 2 days in our intervention as well. This is one of our last forms. This was our modified internet addiction test, which I also mentioned earlier. To be included, you have to have a criteria of above 31 points, which we all met. And then we also took this at the end of our intervention to hopefully have a decrease in our internet addiction. And finally, we also did an intervention acceptability questionnaire at the end of our intervention.
All right, research methods setting. The setting was each participant's home, workspace, and community. The definition is social media usage may be defined as total time spent per day using social media websites such as Instagram, TikTok, WhatsApp, using an iPhone. As a whole, we all, except for Gaia, used TikTok to decrease, and then she used WhatsApp. And then examples, the participant using WhatsApp, the participant scrolling through TikTok, viewing or creating content. Non-examples would be one-on-one messaging, text messaging, FaceTime, emailing, etc. Data collection. Each participant recorded their daily social media use each morning from the prior day on an Excel document shared by all participants, which was just showed to y'all. The baseline procedure, social media usage reports prior to any application limits and contingency management. And then for intervention, on the app, you're able to limit how long you used it. So we all set a timer for 60 minutes just so that when it was time, it'd give us a notification. And then for Gaia, she did 45 minutes. So the application limits and contingency management, each participant set their own application limit in the beginning of the intervention. Also, each participant will pick 3 alternative behaviors at the beginning of the intervention. So here to the left is our goals where we set our time, which we thought an hour was realistic. So we still had time to use it. Because before, when you'll see the data, you'll see that some of us was spending more than 60 minutes a day. And then Gaia did 45 minutes for WhatsApp. And then the alternative behaviors, Sienna was hanging out with partners, schoolwork, and watching TV/movies. Ashley was doing gym, cooking, hanging out with family. Gaia is hanging out with family, cooking, and schoolwork. And then Maria, job, crafts, and cooking. Treatment integrity. Keeping screen time limit feature on for all days of intervention, taking screenshots of screen time history every day, completing behavior allocation form for the first and second days of baseline, and then from the last 2 days of intervention. And treatment integrity was 100% throughout the whole intervention. IOA screenshots of social media reports 30%. Each participant will have a designated IOA partner. For 30% of the sessions, participants will share their screenshot with their partner, vice versa, and compare with their partner has documented on the shared Excel sheet. The IOA will be calculated as follow. Small numbers divided by large number times 100. Equation is small over large times 10 equals blank percent. Results of an IOA. Each participant received 100% on IOA. Results of the study.
Okay, coming to the results of the study, this is the design we chose was single subject. The single subject research design was time staggered, concurrent multiple baseline across participants. And the graph you see here is the daily duration of social media usage. So as Sienna and Ashley shared, I believe they used TikTok. I used WhatsApp, and I believe one of us used Instagram. I'm not sure who. All of us use smartphones, and so the dotted. Okay, so there were 3 phases for the whole design. The original study used a pre-baseline phase, so we have replicated that in our study. The pre-baseline phase basically was implemented by the authors of the original study during the enrollment phase. So they basically wanted to see if there was any reactivity or increase or major increase or decrease prior to, before and after enrollment in the study. So pre-baseline was collected for 7 days, and then we moved on to the baseline phase. The screen time application app was on both in the pre-baseline and the baseline phase. And moving on to the intervention, as Ashley mentioned, we had set an app limit. All of them had 60 minutes and I had 45 minutes. Plus, we all chose what activities we wanted to do in place of using social media. So overall, there was a change in level right from the first day. And 3 out of 4 participants had reduced social media usage right from the first day. Participants were able to keep up with the set goals during the intervention phase. And they were able to choose alternate activities instead of their selected social media app. Okay, so table 1 here, we have the duration, the average duration and the ranges of social media use. If you look at the right corner of the screen is the intervention average. The average time spent on social media during intervention was reduced for all of the participants compared to the baseline and the pre-baseline phase. So we did see positive effects of the intervention for across all participants. Okay. Next, looking at the modified internet addiction test scores, and Sienna had briefly shared the snapshot with all the questions. It is there are 20 questions that assesses internet addiction and social media usage on a 5-point Likert scale. So we see here that 3 out of 4 participants have mild internet addiction. So for mild internet addiction, the score has to be somewhere between 31 to 49. And we see 3 participants had mild. One, Ashley, she was borderline between normal and mild, so she still qualified for the study. For post-intervention, you will see that, again, 3 out of 4 participants have reduced their social media usage and were scored at a normal use, had a normal use social media usage. So one participant was again at borderline between normal and mild, but so she's almost there with the scores. Okay, so the next few set of graphs, we will be sharing the contingency management, that is the alternative behaviors that we chose for in place of using our apps that we selected. Here, this is Ashley's data, and if you look at her using social media pre-post, you see a significant difference between pre and post. And looking at what she was doing during intervention phase, she was exercising, hanging out with family, and also trying to cook. She kept up with the cooking pre and post. Moving on to Sienna. For Sienna, you'll see again, there was a significant decrease in use of social media. So good job, Sienna. The alternate activity she chose during post-intervention were watching TV or movies. She did schoolwork, and she also hung out with her partner, so which is really nice. Okay, moving to Maria. Again, good job, Maria, for reducing your social media usage time in your post-intervention, and the alternate activities that we see Maria doing in post-intervention are working, of course, her job, and then she did schoolwork, crafts, and also some bit more cooking. And moving on to my data, again, good job to me as well. I also reduced my social media usage, and the alternate behaviors were hanging out with family, doing my schoolwork, and cooking. So these were all again to prove that the intervention worked for all of us. And moving on to the social validity aspect. This was a very good questionnaire. It was called the Intervention Acceptability Questionnaire, wherein all the participants rated, gave their scores for about the intervention and how feasible it was. And all the participants endorsed a score of 5 and above in all of the questions. I believe one of the questions on privacy concern, one of the participants had a score below 5, but other than that, all of the participants seemed really satisfied with how the intervention worked for them.
Thank you, Gaia. So now we're going to discuss some of the limitations that we had in our study. So the first one that we discussed was the increase in usage of other apps or digital devices that were not targeted in the study. This could be something such as Instagram usage increasing when we are targeting TikTok. This is a form of displacement that could mitigate the overall impact of our efforts. Another limitation that we have is due to the relatively short duration of the project, our assessment of outcomes is limited to the immediate effects observed within this time frame. And the last limitation that we observed was the intervention phase was very, very long. In another study, we could move into maintenance and generalization phases quicker. In conclusion, this study has yielded promising results across all 4 participants, demonstrating a decrease in screen time usage. We also ensured the validity and accuracy of the project through regular check-ins and consistent posting of screen time trackers. Through the contingency management plan, we also observed an increase in engagement with other activities. Our project highlights the importance of mindful technology usage and the potential for individuals to reclaim control over their screen time habits. These are our references, and I and my group thank you so much for listening to our study.
Thank you.